Welcome to the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast, where we dive into the art and science of building a thriving med spa. I'm your host, Kat Toronto. In this podcast, we're all about empowering medical professionals and entrepreneurs like you with the knowledge, tools, and inspiration needed to elevate your practice to new heights. Whether you're just starting your journey or you're a seasoned expert looking to expand, this is the place where the industry's brightest minds come together to share their secrets to success. So sit back, relax, and get ready to unlock the potential of your med spa with the Making a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. Let's go on this journey together, one success story at a time. I'm Kat Toronto, and welcome back to the Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. Today, I have a special guest. I'm really excited to bring Daniel on. I've had the opportunity to work with Daniel Schacter for the last, what has it been? Known you maybe now for 2 years. And so I just want to start out a little bit about you, kind of talk about your background, where you've been prior to working in this space, and then we'll get to how I met you.
Yeah, I understand. Yes, it's a bit of an unusual path into the medical aesthetic space. I have an accounting and finance degree by background. You might hear the A's and A's come out a little later, but I'm Canadian and studied up in Canada as well. Then did my MBA at Oxford in the UK. And worked in management consulting for one of the largest groups, McKinsey and Company. And that kind of gave me a lot of breadth. So I look at things in a very numerical fashion and have, studied, 35, 40 different businesses to date. And when I came into the field, I definitely take that side where, looking at best practices from different fields and how can we apply that into our industry. And it's been an amazing experience and really excited so far to be part of it.
So what are some of the companies that you had looked into before?
Yeah, so apart from having my own business, which grew it to about a $500 million company before I left, I'd worked at some of the largest chocolatiers in the world on the retail side. I'd worked at some of the largest consumer packaged goods companies, or think of like L'Oreal's and Procter & Gamble's. Also had worked on services side, so everything from large law firms to healthcare services like med aesthetics, and helping those individuals build their businesses. And where I really focused was in what's called transformation. So it's how do you take a business from place A, or like good to great? How do you take it from good, or maybe in some cases not so good, to great? And what are the cultural tools? What are the financial tools? What are the operating tools needed to do it? And that's really what got me excited at McKinsey to start my own business. And that what got me from my own business after I sold it to join and really build CPP to what it is today.
Well, I started out with the podcast with, awkwardly, like my special guest, because seriously, you're like double special. But I think just for our listeners that are with us and have been following us and, have worked with us over the years, I just want them to know, like, you truly are, like, probably honestly the smartest person I've ever met. Like, you are so smart. But on top of that, you're so humble and genuinely kind. And I think, for me, that has really made such an impact to see you work with so many people that I know and love, and that you've taken such great care of them. And so it's really one of your most amazing talents is not only your brain, Daniel, but just your heart. And I think that's important. That's important to a lot of us. So I gotta get that out there. What's that?
You're making me blush. Thank you.
Come have a BBL. I'll help you with that later. I'm like the type of person that I used to blush, like just thinking about blushing. And BBL is the only thing that fixes it. So it's the reasons I love BBL so much. So I mean, you've had an amazing career. I got to point out, this is a podcast. Many people are just listening to the vocal part of this, but it is posted on YouTube as well. And if you check it out on YouTube, you're going to see that Daniel is not 85 years old, you guys. I mean, Daniel's young. And so to look at his career and what he's done so far is really amazing with where you are in life. So a shout out to that also, Daniel. Yeah. So kind of talking along those lines, I mean, have you had a mentor or two or three, like who have been your mentors? Like who's inspired you to get you where you are?
I would not be in this specific role or company had it not been for my mentor. Jeff Bakowitz is that person, and Jeff Hart has become that person as well. So Jeff Bakowitz founded Victoria Park with Jeff Hart, and I met Jeff Bakowitz about 7 years ago while I was at McKinsey and Company. He has a nonprofit that he was working on, and he needed help to really structure it and figure out how to, it was based in Africa, and how to run the operations, but also make sure that it was financially viable to do it. And I really enjoyed working with him and the team to get that done, and have kept in touch with him ever since. And before I started my last company, he was the first person I spoke to, and it went really well. And after I sold the company, as I was exploring at 4 different opportunities on the table, Jeff went through the pros and cons of it. And as Jeff typically does, he has something in his mind, but he lets me get there, and he kind of laid the seeds, each one step by step, for me to say, don't take any of those offers. Why don't we build CPP? And that's really what it's always been his one of his biggest successes. Instead of ramming something down your throat, he gives you the information you need to make the decision. And if you're capable and able, you'll make a great decision. Typically, it works out for everyone. So Jeff has been a fantastic start, and then my other partner, Jeff Hart, has really taken me under his wing. And both of them have the gray hair that I lack today. They've been in this industry for over 15 years. Again, in Canada, leading Victoria Park, which is one of the best performing clinics across Canada. And just seeing how they've been able to do it, learning from their best practices has been monumental. So amazing tutelage from two people who've been in the industry a long time. It's been fantastic.
I mean, I think you definitely have honed that skill in as well, helping people find the direction without pointing it out in a super obvious way. I have had the benefit of working through that with you. So you've definitely picked that skill up. So I mean, kind of looking at your personal life, growing up to where you are now, and seeing, getting into Oxford, I mean, getting your MBA there, and then, working for one of the biggest companies, and then starting your own business and making it such a huge success, and then seeing what we've done so far and what you've driven, with CPP. What drives you? Like, where did that come from?
It's there's a person, one of my in grade 7, one of my best friends who's a radiologist today. I was always smart, but not necessarily the best performing student, and he just worked his heart out every single day. This is one of those kids who played phenomenal piano and then was the captain on the soccer team, and I was just watching him and being like, how do you do all these things? And I think he just broke the thought that, like, there were limits and you could literally be anyone you wanted. You just had to try and work hard to do it. So, ever since that time, I have aspired to do all of those things. And I think that is true in every sense of it. There's no need to be a jerk while you're doing it. So I'm a huge believer in just be positive. Life is so much better when you're happy. assume, best intent, that everyone else is trying to be positive too. No one wakes up trying to hurt each other. They all wish they could, help and support each other, and then just work your butt off. And if you do those things together in a smart, logical way, you end up with success. So it's worked so far, and I'll keep going.
I love it. It reminds me of this quote, and I think of this often because, we have two children, and you have children as well, but we have a 21-year-old and a 7-year-old. And, with the 7-year-old, well, with both, but, as the 7-year-old is really developing these friendships, I often think of the quote, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And really, that's amazing that you remember that from the 7th grade and you made the decision that early in life. And I mean, what an impact that has made.
Well, I can count my ducks every time I think of how lucky I was to have that friend to sort of lead the way. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so let's dive into a little bit about CPP. We haven't talked about it yet, and I didn't want to do that first off because I want our listeners to get to know you as a person and as a business person. And obviously, I'm a huge fan of CPP. I'm one of the founders, and Aesthetic Care is one of the clinics. And so, talk a little bit about CPP. What are we at CPP? What are some of our goals at CPP? And let's dive into that.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where we are here as a partnership. And I think partnership is the most important thing. You'll hear people talk about partnership a lot, but I don't think I've ever met a group that is similar to us in that regards. And it really is a difference. We were speaking with Skytail, which is a well-known broker firm the other day. And when the partner is telling you, then there's no other firm like you. You need to really explain why you're so different. That was such a compliment to me. I don't want to be like everyone else, and that's not the founding trust of CPP. So what CPP is, it's a partnership of clinics, which means that is a group of clinics who come together, who allow each clinic to have a say at the table, where you can retain a lot of control over your practice, but at the same time benefit from the scale advantages that a private equity-like group would have. So, CPP buys injectables like neurotoxin. We buy $20 million of neurotoxin a year. That's going to be significantly more neurotoxin than any one clinic would buy on its own. So the price that we pay for neurotoxin is significantly advantaged. The knowledge that we have of use this product, this laser over another laser, that's super important. And every doctor, because there's shared economics as well as individual economics, each doctor is incentivized to teach every other doctor their best practice. These are the lasers we use. These are the devices we use. These are the best practices we have. So we have a book of more than 30 pages, bullet points of like best practice, best practice, best practice. And each one, you go through it and this practice brings $110,000 to the group, or $50,000 to the clinic, $6,000 to the clinic, $5,000. You put all of those into effect and your clinic is just way better than it was on its own. But at the same time, you're not having someone who's like, how many patients did you see yesterday? You saw 6, you need to see 12, otherwise, you're not bonus. That's like the old school private equity way. That's not what we're about. If you as a doctor are going to be happy seeing 6 patients, see your 6 patients. That's amazing. We don't want you to do any more or less than you did last year. It's just about being fair and respectful to the group. And it's been hyper successful. Financially, we've absolutely crushed it. I think 30% profit growth year over year. But even more important to me, satisfaction. Doctor joining satisfaction is like 99%. It's unheard of. If you've heard so many stories of these like dermatology roll-ups and other kind of roll-ups where people say destroyed my business, we're the farthest thing from that. So I think those are the things that really the similarities and the contrast between what we're doing.
Do you know an outstanding med spa, doctor, manager, provider, or groundbreaking treatment that is reshaping the industry? Nominate them for Mint's Clinics to Watch. We are so excited to launch this initiative to recognize the true leaders in our industry. Our aim is to spotlight those leading the way to excellence, providing valuable insights for others to pave their path to success. Check out our website for past winners of the Clinics to Watch. You can also nominate someone at the link in our show notes. Share your nominations and be part of celebrating the industry leaders. Let's inspire and build success together. You guys, we hit 20,000 downloads and I couldn't be more grateful. Thanks for listening to my guests, my team, my family, and I share all the things we have learned over so many years in the industry. We truly hope you find value in our episodes. Don't forget to give us your feedback so we can make the podcast even better. Thanks, everyone. I love and appreciate you all. If you'd like to support us further, we would truly appreciate a 5-star rating and review on this podcast. Those ratings help other clinics and professionals find us. Or if you know of someone else who would really enjoy these episodes, share it with a friend. Our biggest goal with this podcast is to empower our community of aesthetics to grow and to be their absolute best. Thanks again. Back to the episode.
Well, I think, and I didn't want to interrupt because it's like such great information, but I think a lot of people hear private equity and they will all of a sudden turn it off. So don't turn the podcast off. That's not what this is today. We're trying to help you find other ways. And that's exactly what happened with me in the process as we were starting to talk with, Jeff Hart and Jeff Inkowitz and putting together this concept of CPP is, I have a really good friend that went through the private equity roll-up with the dermatology clinic. And she was telling me, everything that had happened to her. And I thought, why would we ever do that? We're doing so well. We love where we are in our life. We have no reason to do something like this. And I don't think I've ever told Jeff Hart this, but they came down to Kansas City. This is years ago. And, he genuinely cared about us. And at first I was like, do I trust that? Is that like real? And he went home and he sent us some books that I brought up. I said, my son loves this book. And he sent me Iggy Peck Architect. And he sent me this. I mean, I remember specifically.
Crazy.
And, he got me with those books, Daniel. But not in the way of, like in a good way.
Generally, he cares.
He listened. He cared about us as humans. It wasn't about making a dollar. It wasn't about that. It was just about building something great. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna support whatever way this goes. And and it's obviously been such a huge blessing, but it's funny to think about that something that simple can make such a big difference, And so going back to that, going back to the difference between private equity and CPP, one of the things that I've noticed, because I'm on the clinic side too, right? And so obviously I'm really, really super excited if any of our listeners are interested in CPP because I'm part of that. So I do want to make sure that everyone listening understands that. But I've also been on the other side as a clinic coming on and seeing the benefits. And, one of the things that Matt and I talk so much about is one, we have kept full control. One of the things that I hear is, you're not going to be able to give your team, the incentives that you normally would, which has been the complete opposite. You're not going to be able to grow your clinic and CPP came on and we were finishing our build out. So that's completely opposite. So many things that have been so much better for us as a clinic. But one of the fun surprises and benefits has been the data. We thought we knew our net. We thought we had the financials. We thought, and in working with so many clinics across the country that had 10% of what we had, to then understand that we've had 10% of what you had, has just been so much fun because it gives us the ability to grow and to change and know from coming from like black and white where we are and not emotionally or thinking we know what it is, but actually having the numbers to show it. And I think for us, that's been such a big piece, and to watch our net grow so much based on that, just making little changes. The information that we get, and then your point of like bigger buying power, which we had the highest buying power with the injectables because we do so many, right? But for clinics that are smaller than us that don't have that, it's going to be an even bigger benefit. So had to point some of that out as well. So, if there are clinics that are out there that are considering joining, CPP or getting involved with private equity, what are some questions that they could ask through the process because I was scared. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't just, truly fearful of not only how it would affect our future, but more so our team,
Yeah.
Here we are with all these people that we know and love, and we are providing a space for them to grow, but feed their families. And, it was scary. And so what are some of the questions that these other clinic owners could or should ask to know if it's a good fit for them?
Yep. Yeah, it's a great question. That's fine. I think the first question that I normally ask is why? Why are you thinking about private equity this time? And there's no bad answer here, right? Some people might say, I'm tired and I just, I've been running this practice for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. I needed a break, it's an absolutely fine answer. Some people are saying, hey, I could use the money. I want to buy my kids a house. I want to buy myself a house. I want to, do X, Y, or Z. Good answer. Another answer could be, I'm hearing everyone doing it and I don't want to miss the boat on that side. And there is some truth to that as well, just in terms of how markets top and then they come back down. We're seeing that in dermatology right now. Prices have come down. So people who sold earlier actually made more money than today. All of them are fair answers. I think the most important question that I would ask as I'm considering a private equity firm or the reasons is, A, what's my goal? And if the goal is you want to retire tomorrow and you're looking for a buyout, so someone to buy you out of your business, there are private equity firms that do that. It's not going to be CPP. That's not, what we're all about, but there are firms that do that. They will pay you, let's say, the most amount of money upfront for your business. They don't pay so much after that, but you get a good chunk of change right up front and you kind of hand the keys over and away you go. And that could be great for someone who, wants to walk away. For that person, I would say, if you care about your employees, make sure that whoever you choose also cares about your employees, because once you give those keys away, you never know what you're going to get after. So do your diligence, speak to their referrals, speak to clinics that are already a part of them, make sure they hold their word. Especially if you're going to be walking away from your business and you're not going to be there to be watching every single day, that's really, really important. I would say that is going to be important for all circumstances, but in this situation, it's not going to be for you, it's going to be for your employees at that time. Two, I would say, make sure you understand what the requirements are and the rules that they're going to have for you, especially if you're going to walk away from your business. Sometimes there are these sneaky clauses that they can hide. We tend to be very transparent. So we put everything in like English as opposed to like legalese, where it's like, this is what's required, this is what you're signing up for. And then we have a conversation about it to make sure, both sides understand. And if you don't want that, that's cool. You might or might not be for us. We'd rather have that conversation before someone signs it. Some of these firms are perfectly okay with gotchas because, especially in a buyout, the moment the decision is done, it's like buying a used car. Once you've bought it, you're done. Your transaction is over. So those are some things that are really important in the buyout circumstance. For those who are thinking more about, hey, I'm looking for a partner and I'm looking at this as a long term. Let's say, maybe I want to retire in 5 years, 10 years. There's some more factors that come into play. So some of the things you need to know about a partner, apart from, are they really good? And I would say if a group gives you 1 or 2 references, those are cherry-picked references. Like imagine you ask someone at a job interview, like, send me your references. Those people are going to be glowing. And if they're not, holy moly, you better be worried.
Right.
Normally what I would say is go onto their website, try finding other clinics and call whoever you can that they've announced as part of their group, especially if they have not referred them, you're going to get much more honest feedback. What someone does historically is very likely what they're going to do, to your practice as well. So, again, I've just heard so many stories about private equity. Take your time and think about it. Two, I would say, is make sure you understand the compensation structure long term. Many of these groups have different types of equity, things like a preferred share, which means they might give you a common share, but they themselves might have these shares on top of it, which, they get their money out first. So especially if they're compensating you in something other than cash, some of these assets that they're giving you, they might call it equity, but they can be very, very limited and very, very non-beneficial to the seller of the clinic. So you have to be really careful there and make sure that your financial planner or your broker or your accountant is asking questions about it. And some brokers, again, because they get the check the moment the clinic is signed, they don't have to deal with you 5 years later. And that's when you're going to figure out that your shares are worthless. It is so important to understand the difference between preferred shares and common shares and what you're going to get from that other group. So, those are a couple examples.
I knew nothing about before this. It's just, and I'm pretty sure, maybe a lot of us out there that aren't in the finance world, and so I think that's a really important piece to pay attention to.
Yeah. I'd say have someone on your side, right? Like, you guys were fantastic. You had both accountants and financial planners absolutely grill us step by step. Don't ever feel like you can't afford it. If you're about to sell your practice, this is your baby. Like, you should have that. I like to say I'm as honest. I'm super honest, but you still need someone who is unbiased, who's on your side of the playing field, giving you advice. I think you guys did such a good job having that, and it helped you understand the differences between joining CPP versus someone else. Same is true everywhere.
Right. Okay, so looking at CPP versus private equity, I feel like we've talked quite a bit about that. I think just one of the main takeaways is that, with us, we're looking, to your point that you mentioned earlier, partners. We want other clinics to come on that want to be part of this with us, this bigger journey than what we knew ever existed before, but yet have an IT department and an HR. I actually have a recruiter that finds people for me, brings them to me. I have 3 to choose from instead of going through 300. A marketing team, there's all those little pieces that seem so normal to you. And for us, we are, and before CPP, a bigger clinic. We are fortunate that we have a marketing director who's unbelievable, a manager, front desk manager, unbelievable. But even with that team in place, now to have the benefits of the CPP group has really made a difference. So, I think that's one of the bigger pieces to this as well, is joining a team and having those resources to where if you are in the room doing treatments all day, it's nice to have the other parts of the business run. And so often I have clinic owners tell me, I'm just tired of that piece. They're tired of they just want help, not tired of it. They just want help with it, and not just okay help. They want like outstanding help, right? And so that's what I think, you're doing so well. So it's fun to share. Yeah. Okay. So I think, outside of CPP, looking at all the clinics now that you've looked at, collecting all this data, looking at the EMRs that we use, the way that we do retail, the websites that are used, the e-commerce, if it's done or not, are there 2 or 3 or 4 tools that you think would be beneficial for clinics that could help to reduce spend or increase productivity or just be helpful? Like anything that you could think of on the software side or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first tool would be on the payroll side. This is just like a quick hack tool that we really, really like. It's called Rippling. It's American based. The reason we love it is it's basically your payroll, time and attendance surveying, employee surveys, we'll get to that in a second, health benefits, 401k, you can do IT management through it. There's so many different things all in one. So it's the one-stop shop where your employees can go and get all of their information. And too many times I go speak to clinics and they use 6 different platforms. Everything's all over the place, and they're using their friend for 401ks, and they're using, XYZ broker for health benefits. And the problem that all of those things do is, when you're saying, hey, why is this so complicated? It's because you haven't made it easy. So what I love about Rippling, it's everything in one place. Your employees, when they come on board, they have all the information. Their learning tools are in one place. Getting them recertified on like bloodborne pathogens is all done within that tool. It does it automatically. Every year it recertifies people for you automatically. Having it all in one place, all really simple, all automated, it just takes so much work out of your business. And it's really user friendly. So for anyone, even thinking about the HR side or hasn't started their clinic yet and is thinking about it, I'm a big fan of Rippling. It is just so user friendly.
I love it. I giggled because, we were using our friend for 401k. I'm like, are you talking about just us? Or is it other people out there too? It is one of those things where you add something and then you add something and then you add something. And so it's not under one program or process. And then it is 15 different logins and trying to figure out what are all those passwords.
It's crazy. That actually brings us to number 2. 1Password would be a big one. Just like you said, Kathy, I don't even want to know how many passwords you must have on all the different apps and plugins. One of the scariest things in this industry is some of the hacks that have happened. I don't know if you've read about some of those with some very well-known plastic surgery clinics, where all of the before and after pictures, including face shots and the parts that have been changed on their patients, had been leaked. And they had, some very well-known individuals, and like their insurance won't cover this. Like this clinic might be out of business because of it. It's huge. The easiest way, especially as more and more people move to the cloud, the easiest way to be hacked is your password. If you're using your birthday or like password 123, that's the place that gets hacked. And unfortunately, it's not the owner. The owner is going to be really thoughtful about, having a creative password. It's going to be someone at the front desk who, it just doesn't know or care. Many do, but just it only takes one. Your weakest, unfortunately, when you're on defense, the weakest part of your armor is that one hole. That's all it takes. So tools like 1Password, which you put all your employees onto it, it'll tell you if any of your employees have weak passwords. It won't say what the password is. It'll just say like, Joey has a weak password for their Next Tech or their Patient Now, get them to change it. And then it saves the password for them. It's so helpful. Also, when your employees leave, because all their passwords are saved onto 1Password, and it makes these like super long passwords that no one can remember, as soon as they leave, you only have to deactivate one thing and then it kicks them off the whole system. So you don't even have to remember all the things that employee had access to. It just makes your life so easy. So, for someone who has a lot of passwords, it's really, really easy to set up. It sits in the background. It stores passwords automatically for you. Once you get using it, everyone has told me like, oh, that is so nice. The first day or two is a little bit of a learning curve, but after that, it's just such a breeze. So those would be like my 2 quick tools that I would highly recommend.
I love that.
Being MedSpa owners and managers, we understand the constant demands on your plate. Let Mint's online e-courses lighten the load. Easily onboard new team members, manage course access, track user progress, and more, all at your fingertips. Our platform is tailored to alleviate training stress, providing your team with the education and support necessary to unlock their full potential as an aesthetic provider. Take a step towards seamless management and empowered teams. Learn more at mintaesthetics.com. We've got your back. Our flagship training event is back for another year. Join Mint Aesthetics for our virtual immersion seminar on June 14th, September 6th, or December 6th, or all three, for a day-long comprehensive training on BBL and Halo. We will cover an in-depth didactic with insights on settings, contraindications, post-care, and more. Plus, we will close out the day with hands-on combination treatment demonstrations. For only $5.99, you can get the best BBL Halo training for your entire team. You also have the option to pay with Sciton Success Builder points. Registration is now open for all dates, so book your spot now.
Throw out another tool, the Mint e-courses there for our subscribers. I had to put that out, my own little commercial. For onboarding, continual training. Oh, I'm just teasing, but I always got to give a shout out to Mint. So
we think it's huge. Every single one of our clinics has Mint. And why do we have Mint? Because it's just so accessible, the training on that side. So I'd say building it in, don't underestimate how amazing Mint is and how much we love it at CPP. We will pay for it. We don't need to, but we pay for it hands down every single time because the value you guys bring is outrageous. So thank you, Kathy and team, for setting that up. We love it.
Oh, well, thank you. I was kind of teasing, but actually it really does come from a place of wanting to help people. So got to give a shout out to my own product. So you're looking at where we are now, and I've been in the space since January of 2000 and seen many shifts and changes over the years. This is a pretty big one that we see happening in our industry. I mean, what do you think our industry is going to look like in 5 to 10 years? I mean, I know there's no crystal ball, but I mean, with what's happening, what do you see changing for the good or for the worse, or however you want to look at that?
So while you're right, there's no crystal ball, this is one of those super rare circumstances where you actually do have a little bit of a crystal ball and you can see what's happened. Canada is normally the American, the USA's little brother or little sister. We always do everything second. We get your leftovers. That's just the way that it typically works. In med aesthetics, it's kind of been the opposite with the way that consolidation in private equity has happened. And I think a little bit has to do with the size of the market. There are about 650 med spas across all of Canada. To give you perspective, there's more than double that in California alone. So it's crazy markets. But significantly more than 50% of Canada is consolidated today. And there's really 4 groups. There used to be 5. One of them just bought the other one. 4 groups that own the majority of the market. And that changes a lot of things. It changes how vendors interact and pricing with vendors, right? You could see, for neurotoxin, the price that a clinic pays might be double the price that one of these big 4 groups pays for neurotoxin. That's huge. Imagine paying twice as much. How do you compete on price?
No, I don't know how.
It's tough. Or just the size of discounts you get, and that you can then pass on to customers or in membership or in all of those tools. So I would say in this industry, we are going to see a lot of consolidation, and it's going to happen really quickly. I wouldn't be shocked if within 5 years, 70 to 80% of clinics are owned by 3 or 4 groups. I think you're going to see, unfortunately, some of these groups either go bankrupt because they've taken too much debt on, and that's something to be careful of. We're not big users of debt. We don't believe in a lot of it, but a lot of these private equity firms might have 4, 5, 6 times profit in debt. If ever there was a recession, that can become 60 times profit. You can't pay the interest payments back, and they basically will give the keys to your clinic away. I think that would be a nightmare for anyone in the space. I think you're going to see some of that happening, which is what happened in Derm. I also think on the better side, you're going to have some of these clinics being held to higher standards. Many of you on the phone, I'm sure, or online are really high standards, but there are some med aesthetic clinics out there who do not follow, legal structures or laws that are required, or are kind of skirting around it. When you have these big groups come in, one of the advantages is that there is someone who can be sued. There is someone at the end of the day who is responsible, and it isn't these fly-by-night, or hopefully there aren't fly-by-night operations. And they generally tend to raise the standard in terms of legality, making sure that their claims are being backstopped and held. So I think we're going to see, more push on the industry to have claims that are consistent, that are legal, that are being held to standard. But we're going to see some of the downsides as well from consolidation in terms of bankruptcies, in terms of maybe these cookie cutter McDonald's like operations, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, I certainly don't ever want to kind of push someone with a scare factor to join, but I hope that today was educational so that it gives a platform for clinics that are truly interested and see the future going that way, to know that they can reach out to CPP, they can ask their questions, that they get to know us a little bit so that they can get an idea if they are a good fit for us. And so maybe with that, what would that look like? Who are, what clinics are a good fit for CPP? I mean, you've already mentioned we want partners. We're not looking for clinics that are just trying to get out and sell their practice. And so anything else you want to share with that?
Yeah. So normally what I would say is the most important rule, and I think you know where I'm going with this. So apologize for the language up front as a Canadian. I'm blushing just saying it. But we've got a strict no asphalt policy. So, this is super important. Money's great, but at the end of the day, you want to work with people you love. So if you feel it and you're excited about that, that's the most important rule at the top. Other things we look for is you should be in business for at least 5 years. We're looking to see some trends, some history behind you. You should be respectful of legal standards and, you should be above board. Generally, we look for clinics that have at least $500,000 of profitability, or what we call EBITDA. If you're not familiar with what that is, you'll learn about it when you're ready. And have at least 2 or 3 providers minimum. If you're the only person providing care, it's what's called sole provider risk. You're more of a person than a business. So typically groups like ours look for that business side. And as Kathy mentioned, it's a partnership. So we're not looking for a buyout, which means you should be looking for at least 5 years to be in this business go forward. There are groups that are buyout firms and that are happy to take you with less, but for CPP, it's about that partnership side. So, those are the big caveats, but if you ever have questions, reach out to Kathy, reach out to me or my team. We're always happy to talk, and we're always happy to give advice, even if it's for someone else. There's some really good private equity groups too. There's some terrible ones, but there's some really good ones too. So, don't hesitate. It's we just want to make sure everyone, does well and is happy. That's what builds a great industry. So, yeah.
Definitely. I think it's important too to think about those clinics that are maybe 2 to 3 years in, but gives them kind of some bullet points to look at and say, okay, I may not be ready now, both in the perspective of like, I'm a new business, I want to get this going on my own, or, oh wait, they may not be interested yet, but here are some things that I should do to make my business more attractive in the future, if that is the way that I want to go then. And it might not be, but it might. And so I think that's a great place to start, is just like, okay, what the bullet points that you just put out, write those down and kind of track those along the way. So, all right, before we end here, Daniel, today, we have this concept or lesson that we do. It's called the Mint Minute, and they're in the e-course, but we share them through social as well. And so you get 1 minute to share some helpful tool, and it could be something that makes the business more profitable. It could be something that makes doing a treatment more fun or easier, which typically I tend to focus on. Maybe a product that I love, or a mask that takes the heat out after halo, or something like that. So any little minute that you want to end this episode with?
I'll give you one that it's a tool that we're using today. It's for anyone who finds themselves in meetings all the time. It's a tool called Sembly, Sembly, Sembly. And it syncs with your calendar. And I know people have been talking about ChatGPT in these AI platforms, but it's a digital note taker. So it automatically takes notes for you. It sends you a summary. What are the bullet points? It sends you what are the action items and puts your name on it if it's your responsibility to do it. And it does it all automatically. So for anyone who's sitting in a meeting and dreads taking notes or doesn't have the hands to do it, it's a wonderful tool that sits in the background. There's some other tools that do similar stuff, but hopefully that helps.
Daniel, my mind is blown. Like, how have you not told me about this tool before? Just Tracy know about this? Does Rick? I love it. Thank you so much. We're gonna download that and start using it. So
there you go.
Oh, well, it's such a pleasure having you on today. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and to educate our Mint clients and fans out there. Really appreciate all of you listening in and sharing this time with us today. And I hope you found all this information to be helpful. If you want additional information on CPP, please don't hesitate to reach out to Mint. We'll put that in the podcast notes as well. We'll take care of you with that. So anything else you want to finish with today, Daniel?
No, as always, Kathy, thank you so much for having me on the show. And you guys are wonderful. And if there's anything you need, let me know.
All right. Thank you for checking us out today, and we'll see you with the next podcast.
Have a good day.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Making of a Multi-Million-Dollar Med Spa podcast. I'm Kat Toronto, and it's been an absolute joy to be part of your journey. Until next time, let your passion lead the way. See you soon.